This is through the covers. That's a glorious shot.
As Cullinan produced his best innings in Test cricket for 2 years at Newlands in the first match of South Africa's two-match series against Sri Lanka, arguments raged about the selection of 20-year-old Ntini, who became the first black South African Test cricketer. Cullinan was dropped at slip by Mahanama before scoring. Then he recovered his form in scintillating style by cruising to a century off just 138 balls.
Take on Milestone, and he smashes this one away over the boundary rope for 6. Pulled away. I don't think this young man's quite quick enough to bowl that to Cullinan.
His innings was adorned with 13 fours and a 6 before he eventually fell to Vikramasinghe shortly before the close. Meanwhile, Gary Kirsten and Hansie Cronje offered solid support as South Africa built the foundations of an imposing total. Shaun Pollock impressively rubbed salt in the wounds by blasting a quick-fire 92, his highest Test score, to lead South Africa past 400. But the biggest cheer of the day from the 10,000-strong crowd came when Ntini walked out to bat.
So a great moment for 20-year-old Ntini on the border.
After Alan Donald had removed SERES and Mahanama, Atapatu cautiously and De Silva aggressively began the fight back. When Ntini came on to bowl, De Silva greeted him with brutal disdain, and his first 4 overs in Test cricket yielded 32 runs. When he returned for a second spell, De Silva immediately dismissed him for 2 more boundaries. But next ball, he produced a bouncer, which De Silva could only glove to Boucher, and the crowd erupted.
And Ntini has got his first Test wicket. What a moment for the young 20-year-old from the border.
More than that, it changed the course of the game. From 165 for 2, Paul Adams and Shaun Pollock gradually worked their way through the visitors' batting, and they were dismissed 112 runs in arrears, Pollock finishing with 4 for 83. After Kirsten and Bakker went early, Jacques Kallis, Cullinan and Cronje led the home side to a commanding position. But the spin attack of Muratharan and SERES was persistent and economical, and the South African late order fell apart under their spell. Muratharan finished with 4 for 108 off 41 overs, and SERES with 4 for 53 off 33, his best figures to date as South Africa collapsed to 264 all out to leave Sri Lanka with a glimmer of a chance, a target of 376. Sri Lanka approached the challenge with a will, even after the early loss of SERES and Mahanama, but were always just behind in terms of run rate and wickets lost. De Silva, Marvin Atapatu, Arjuna Ranatunga and Romesh Kalawitharana all made good contributions, but were ultimately unable to last the pace. When Kalawitharana fell to Pollock, Sri Lanka were 239 for 8, and the match was surely over. But then Pramadea Vikramasinghe launched a remarkable assault which had the crowd looking nervously at the scoreboard as he raced to his maiden 50 in just 44 balls.
Magnificent shot from Vikramasinghe. He stood there, hit through the line.
To the delight of the crowd, it was the young debutant Ntini who ended the fun, leaving South Africa victorious by 70 runs as Sri Lanka finished on 306 all-out for the second time in the match to provide a statistical nugget. It was the 6th and highest identical total in each innings by a side in Test history. Sri Lanka therefore needed to win the second Test at Centurion Park to square the series, and they made the bold move of batting first on a green wicket. Sanath SERES blazed a quick-fire 51, but the run-out of Atapatu by Kirsten was quickly followed by Ntini capturing the wickets of SERES and then Aravinda De Silva to leave the visitors perilously poised at 68 for 3. But Mahanama and captain Arjuna Ranatunga took advantage of Pollock's misfortune in sustaining a groin injury and began rebuilding patiently. And when bad light ended play early, they had added very nearly 100 without further loss.
And you see, quality players don't miss the boat when it's presented to them.
South Africa's injury woes deepened when Donald hurt his ankle, but he continued bravely for 11 overs off the reel. Captain Cronje stepped into the breach caused by Pollock, and he made the breakthrough by removing the painstaking Mahanama. But Tilakaratne proved equally adhesive, and with his captain steered Sri Lanka past the psychological 300 barrier before Cronje took his 3rd wicket for just 21 off 14 overs, his best figures in Tests.
Is he caught? He is. Quite brilliantly caught by Gary Kirsten.
In response, Cullinan was magnificent, the rest woeful, as Muratharan extracted prodigious turn from the wearing pitch. Cullinan treated the off-spinner with respect and the seamers with disdain as he scored an imperious century. But when he eventually fell to SERES for 103, the devastation around him was complete. Liebenberg fell to Pushpakumara on the very first ball of the innings. Ackerman went quickly to Joycer. Kirsten struggled through 82 balls for 13 before falling to the very last ball of the day. Next morning, Callis must have thought the gods were with him when he was dropped by Joycer at mid-on and by De Silva at square leg before he'd made 6. But he failed to take advantage of such luck and amassed just 12. Muralitharan then prized out Cronje, Pollock, Boucher and Donald and finished with 5 for 63 off 30 overs. South Africa mustered a total of just 200, meaning that Cullinan had personally scored over 50% of the runs. With a lead of 103, Pollock unable to bowl and Donald struggling with an ankle injury, Sri Lanka were hot favourites, but somebody forgot to tell that to Alan Donald. When he bowled SERES, he became the first South African to take 200 wickets and the 5th fastest ever to reach that landmark, and passing another personal milestone with his 1,000th first-class wicket. Inspired, he quickly followed up with the wickets of Atapatu and Mahanama to reduce the visitors to 40 for 3. That swiftly became 40 for 4 and then 42 for 5 as Cronje joined in the fun by dismissing Ranatunga and Tilakaratne for ducks in successive overs.
Is he caught? He is! He's caught by Derek Crooks.
It defies belief in that position that the next 2 wickets should be absurd run-outs, but it happened. First, Kalawitharana became the 4th Sri Lankan to be out without scoring, which reduced them to 42 for 6. Aravanda De Silva brought a little respectability to the scoreline, aided by a let-off from Cullinan at fine leg. But shortly before the close, he too perished in suicidal fashion to leave the visitors reeling overnight at 93 for 7.
Wicket-keeper Boucher.
Next morning, Vikramasinghe fell swiftly to Adams, and then Donald returned to wrap up the innings for just 122, as he finished with 5 for 54. South Africa therefore needed 225 to win, but they would have been in no way complacent after their first innings performance. Kirsten and Liebenberg gave them the start they wanted, with an opening stand of 89. But when Liebenberg fell to Muralitharan, Ackerman and Cullinan followed in quick succession to provoke more than a few jitters.
Kirsten appealed for LBW, the finger is up. That seemed to keep a bit low.
At 99 for 3, in came South African captain Hansi Cronje. Either he had decided in advance that attack provided the best hope of salvation against the spinners, or he had a train to catch. But what happened next was spectacular. He proceeded to unleash a fearsome assault which produced the 2nd fastest 50 ever in Test history, just 31 balls. In 1 over from Muralitharan, he hit successive balls for 4, 6, 6 and 6 and totally transformed the game.
Cronje goes to 50 in grand style.
He finally fell to SERES for 83 off 63 balls, but by then the contest was over. Although overshadowed by Cronje's blistering hitting, Gary Kirsten's patient 75 not out was also valuable, and he had the satisfaction of scoring the winning run that sealed a 2-0 series victory.
2 Tests to 0.